I expect that the indicators would be as numerous as there are people, but are there there's some usual indicators or things that if you didn't know a person well, that you might look for that would be typical indicators that someone is more stressed than usual?
Yeah, just distraction, unable to really follow your conversation. You can see the glaze in their eyes sometimes. They're asking you to repeat what you just said. They're having real difficulty tracking the conversation that you're in. Sometimes, they look sleepy. You see that vacant stare in their eyes. So there are a lot of different things like that. And particularly if you know someone, as soon as you see their behavior change, you hear their voice change, you know something's going on.
Service members are taught various decision-making models, including everyone's favorite, the arduous military decision-making process, which can take weeks or years, I think, even in the span of days. You've developed your own model, the PAMA model. Could you tell us a little bit about that and how it works?
Yeah. Let me go back to the military model for a minute. I think it has a place. Okay? There's certainly a place there. There are decisions that are made in the military that are long-range, long-term decisions that need to be well thought out and worked out. And I think there's a time to use that model. As you start moving toward combat operations, the time comes more compressed. And even with that model, you can speed it up a little bit, and then you can start to abbreviate it some. With the PAMA model, what I was trying to do was say, let's look at how decisions are made very quickly, whether you're aware of it or not. What is just the basic process of what's going on? So you're receiving something like 10 million bits of information from the environment all the time. I mean, every second it's coming in like that. You can't process, particularly consciously, you can't process that much information. I mean, you're feeling a pressure on the chair that you're sitting on, the temperature, different things, sounds outside, sounds in the room. All of that's coming in. Most of it's going into your unconscious. So the PAMA model looks at a stimulus occurring in the environment. So something happens out there. It comes into your system, and we say you perceive it, either consciously or unconsciously. There's some perception that something just happened. Might be a sound, might be a person walking up, whatever. But something has happened. So when it comes into your system and it's perceived, you immediately make an appraisal of it. You start in an appraisal process of what was that? What just happened? Or what's happening right now? And I use the example sometimes of, you're walking down a trail and you see this long curvy thing right next to the trail. You see it, you perceived it, you appraise it, your mind says snake. It motivates you to do something, which is to take an action, which is jump off the trail, and you jump off the trail, and now you have a little more time to look at it and think about it again. So when you look back, now you're perceiving the stimulus again. This time you can take more time to appraise it, and what you notice is a stick. And then as you continue to think and appraise, you realize that, it's January. It's 18 degrees out here. If it is a snake, it's frozen. It's not going to be much of a threat. So you perceive the stimulus, you do an appraisal of it, which leads you to a motivation to do something, and then you execute some type of action. And that's a recursive system. So as soon as you start to take action, everything's changing. So you're reappraising, remotivating, reacting, and so you keep changing, and it's evolving. But I think the critical piece that most people don't realize is during the appraisal process, there's two major factors that are taking place in there. One is a cognitive process that goes on where cognitively, intellectually, you're processing the data and saying, what does this mean? What is it? What does it mean? But on the other level is the emotional process. And the emotional process is being driven like the component that we mentioned earlier, the amygdala within the brain, and it's very fast. And it also responds to fuzzy data. It doesn't have to see a clear picture of a snake in order to tell you it's a snake, it's a threat, get out of the way. It's kind of a survival mechanism. If it sees a pattern that's anywhere close to something that might be a threat, it immediately causes you to take action, unless it's overridden by the cognitive part of your brain and the prefrontal cortex. So both of those are coming together, and you have to have both of them to make a good decision. You just have to have them in the right blend. So the decision could be made unconscious, still goes through the same process. Something happens, car backfires, you're on the ground. All of these things happen. It just happened, very quickly and unconsciously. You immediately took action. But it can also be a slower process where you slow it down. You may have time to slow it down and start to think about, what's the problem, what's the situation, let me gather a little more information. So you can go through it slower. But it also helps explain, the quick, unconscious kinds of intuitive decisions that you make. That's to throw it all.
It's both interesting and extremely useful to understand that there's a chemical difference and there's a physiological difference in where and how decisions are made based on all the factors of stress or anything else. And it's not something to have a problem with. It's simply to be understood.
Yeah. And you have to learn how to use it and understand that when the stimulus occurs, if it's a stressful or perceived as a stressful stimulus, it will immediately cause you to take your brain takes a chemical bath right off the bat. You get this humongous shot of cortisol in your system. And when that happens, it starts triggering all kinds of other chemical reactions in the body. Adrenaline goes up, so your heart rate, revs up. And it just, the whole series of things. Your coagulation factors in your blood goes up. The blood is squeezed out of your skin, goes to the major muscle groups, so it can, help you run faster or whatever. Your blood sugar level goes up. I mean, it's just amazing how many things will happen in less than a half a second. And if nothing else stressful happens to you the rest of the day, it'll take you about 3 to 5 hours to get back down to where you started before that event happened to you. But understanding that and understanding that process can help you begin to deal with stress. And then understanding how stress accumulates throughout the day and across time. And when I lose an hour of sleep tonight and an hour of sleep tomorrow night, I lost 2 hours of sleep now. It accumulates. And now I'm starting to get into sleep deprivation, and then I don't realize it. And sleep deprivation degrades the functioning of my prefrontal cortex, and I start to make less effective decisions. Drinking that other cup of coffee makes me more jittery. My eyes might be open, but I'm still not making effective decisions. I'm just making bad decisions with my eyes open. So.